we have most of our presenters today actually will be presenting virtually. We have a big lunch here. We're sorry the rest of you can't join us for that. Hopefully next time. Speaking of which, I have a list of things I don't want to forget, and I get so busy that I'm going to say it at the beginning of the meeting, knowing that not everybody's here yet, and I hope they'll say it next. So our next meeting, I have it scheduled for April the 13th. So we have, apparently there's, I was considering holding this meeting and now and again in various locations across the state. We have an opportunity for considering St. George. What do y'all think about St. George on the 13th of April? Otherwise, I'm going to move the meeting to April the 6th or the 27th. I'm going to ask you all here in the room first, and then anybody virtually unmute and chime in. Would that be something doable, or would keep you from attending? Do it. Raise your hand.
You're saying St. George on the 13th?
Uh-huh. Yeah. That's maybe, so about a half dozen. Would you prefer it to be here either the week before or the last Wednesday of the month? And raise your hand. So it's 6, correct. Well, how about virtually? The folks that are online, maybe in the chat, if you would just say St. George, type in, or if you would say Salt Lake City, but SLC, and we'll take a count there. And it might just end up. It's hard to drag people down there. But we'd like to do that, right? All right. Hey, we'd like to make introductions. We'll start here, the folks that are here, and then we get virtual because I don't know as many people virtually. So let's start here with the
I'm Wally Brashon. I'm with Atm T Different. I'm a consultant here in Utah. Overlay to, we have a north end and a south end person. And I just retired from the Sheriff's Office after 20 years, and also in the military, used to fly helicopters there. Just glad to be with this group.
There you go. You could fly us all down there. Okay. All right, making a note of that, Wally.
Good morning, I'm Shay Cook. I'm the FirstNet Program Solutions Consultant for the state of Utah. And I live up here in Davis County. Appreciate the time to present.
And if anybody else is not presenting, you have an update or anything, a 1-minute update, now's the time for that too.
Diane Bradshaw, I work for Direct Communications. We're the fiber provider out in Utah.
I'm Greg Hill. I'm with Digital Boulevard, which is an internet service provider in Utah.
Paul Murdoch, High Country Net in Harriman, Utah.
Kathleen Alder, I'm the mayor of Providence City. Trying to learn everything that's going on because I'm a brand new mayor.
Yeah, I commend you for coming. So this is open to all the elected officials and all the communities. Sometimes it's hard to reach them when they're here.
And I brought a council member.
Oh,
I'm Janelle Seeley. I'm the Providence City Council. We're working with Strata in our fiber network. I started doing some home trenching, got live residents, so it's exciting.
Tyler Rasmussen with Strata. We're a service provider, cooperative telecommunications here in Utah. Serving the Uinta Basin, but working with other cities like Providence and Lehigh on a municipal fiber solution.
do speak up. You are like my husband. You're so quiet. Yes.
Well, that's the first
I
time
can
I've
hear
ever-
you. Well, I'm not your
I'm gonna
kids,
tell my wife.
probably.
Tell me that.
I can hear you fine, but I do remember from our last meeting, they said they had a little bit of a challenge hearing the people. So even though I said the microphones are everywhere, this is the best spot, and some of the spots you do need to speak up.
I'm Pressure Saxon.
Yeah. You're next.
I'm Saxon. I'm with Americom Technology. We're a utility contractor here out of Salt Lake.
recommendations and a conclusion.
Nice to have you all the way here from Idaho. Great, thanks.
We're doing several fiber projects in the cache.
I'm Stephen McGee. I am the founder and CEO of Utah Broadband.
Lane Sisk, I'm CEO of Server Plus and Real Choice TV.
Roger Timmerman, CEO of Utopia Fiber. We are a governmental consortium of municipalities, build fiber networks. We're in over 50 cities. We have over 20 fiber to home cities, and that's in Idaho, Montana, and of course Utah, mostly Utah.
I'm glad you introduced yourself. I was wondering who you were.
Yeah, I've never come.
You've lost your glasses and you've
Oh,
added
yeah.
a beard.
Change my look every time.
Lynn Beecher with Go Fiber, CEO. We do all of southern Utah, and it's I drive this every time it comes. So if I hear it's in St. George, oh boy, yeah.
Yes, signs a really good deal down there, I'm sure. Okay, we still have some time, so we could do virtually, and I'm just kind of this, so I can see. I will just go across this screen, and I know I'm going to say your name correctly, Kulule.
Hi, Kulule Jacobzak, Verizon, Government and Community Affairs.
Great, and I'm going to skip 5G. He's a presenter, and Shauna Edson is a presenter, and Denny Harris is a presenter. P. Demi, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
This is Glenn Paul. Apparently has some microphone problems. He's the CEO of GeoPartners.
Okay, thank you. Good to know. Josh Chandler.
Yeah, Josh Chandler, General Counsel for Utopia Fiber.
Great. Eden Johnson, I can tell you she is with our office, the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. So I introduced her. Joseph Silverswag.
Hi there. Joe Silverswag. I manage local government affairs for Comcast operations here in the state of Utah.
Great. Charles Baldwin.
Hey, good morning. Charles Baldwin, CEO of Bitstream Communications.
Brad Welch.
Brad Welch, COO of Centricom and current president of Utah Rural Telephone Association.
Sylvia Wilkins.
Hi, Sylvia Wilkins with Strata Networks. Work with Tyler Rasmussen that is there with you today.
Nancy D. Are you with GeoPartners?
Nancy DeGidio with Breaking Point Solutions and GeoPartners, yes.
Right, okay. Katie. I saw she unmuted and it didn't work, so we'll go on and come back to you, Katie. Gail Long.
Hi, I'm with TDS Broadband Service.
Great. Kelly Cole. Okay, we'll go back. Cameron Francis.
Hey, good morning. Cameron Francis, CEO of Beehive Broadband.
Good to see you. Kira Slauson.
Hi, I'm Kira Slauson. I'm legal counsel for the Utah Rural Telecom Association.
Katie, try you again. Or Kelly Cole. Or anyone I missed that other than those that are presenting. You know, I think we got everybody here now. There's a couple more things I wanted to mention before we move on to our first presenter. I forwarded an email to the Broadband Advisory Council Senator Lee's office urged me to share this with everyone on the council. He says we'd like to hear from the experts, and I agree. public comment regarding the bipartisan infrastructure law, or the IIJA. You may have heard in the news, that's the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act. I'm just curious if there's any that are wanting to provide some input, or if you would like to share it with me. I did receive an email right after that from provider, and if you would like to, you can forward that to me or individually. It's open to the public, so you should have all the links to that. If you don't, if you're not sure what I'm talking about, but you're interested, they do want public comment. I work with the NTIA, the National Telecommunications Information Association. So that's the federal branch that is distributing these funds, and they're very cognizant that it's the states that will be receiving these funds and distributing them here. And they would like, they're open for comment of how this should, how it should look. We know that there are a few $100 million that will be coming to the state, and so I'm open to that too. So I will be involved in committees with our legislature, and I would like to hear from you as well. They will be providing virtual listening sessions to NTIA. It's called, you can find out about them through the Broadband USA website. They're actually holding one today, right after this meeting. So want to get in on that. I think it's during the last half hour of this meeting. Thousands of people have been attending, so if you don't see it, it's hard to get on because there's so many that you can see how recording them and you can watch them after. And then I received this morning, and I'm going to forward this to everybody. This is from the Office of Intelligence and Analysis, threats to the U.S. communications sector. I got this from our Utah Public Utilities Office. He thought that everybody in the communications sector had already received this. Does this look familiar? And if it doesn't, I will be forwarding it to you. It just talks about they are assessing foreign adversaries or nation state adversaries that are exploiting access to business people, employees, researchers, and students in the U.S. to steal sensitive information and technology. They're targeting also U.S. communication sector in the coming year, including efforts to compromise sensitive data. Anyway, there's pieces of information, and I'm sure this is something that you're all aware of and working on in your for the providers, making sure that we're safe and secure. But apparently, it's a heightened increase this year, so they sent that out. I will forward that to you. This doesn't sound like anybody's seen that yet. And I think that's everything. And our first presenter is Ron Eisen. He's the Strategic Sales Development Executive. And the conversation with him, we invited him to come and present. And he is with Atran. And he will be attending.
Can you hear me okay, Rebecca?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. You guys are kind of faint, but I think I've got everything. So thank you very much for the opportunity to meet with everybody. Brief introduction. Name is Ron Eisen. I am what is called an ASP development manager. We work with alternate service providers in my group at Adtran here, and I'll just briefly talk about what that entails. I have a home in Farmington, just up by Lagoon there, and asked Rebecca if we could maybe just kind of mainly I wanted to come and listen and learn as to what you folks are doing, but she graciously gave me a few minutes to be able to introduce and talk a little bit about what we're doing, especially with some of the federal funding programs. So as an alternate service provider group, we work with the cities, counties. We work a lot with the public utility space, Department of Transportation areas, and things like that. So what I'd love to do is I have slides. Do I need to go to present mode, or do you have those there, Rebecca?
No, you run it at your end if you can. Let's try it.
I mean, I can.
Oh, wait, I'm not here. Can you hear me?
What did you say? I'm sorry.
Run it at your end if you can.
Okay, I will share my screen. Here we go. And tell me if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, well, you saw a quote you probably shouldn't have seen, but other than that, okay.
Quiet, Ron, can you, is there any way you can a little closer and speak up?
Okay, can you see now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I won't spend a lot of time. Quite honestly, I feel like you folks here probably know a lot more about these programs than I do. But what I'm anxious to do is just talk about some of the research we've done in areas that we are helping a lot of municipalities, a lot of potential new customers, and just being able to move forward with federal funding or even private programs if they'd like. If you're not familiar, I won't spend time here at all, but Adtran is a company, a US-based company out of Huntsville, Alabama. And what we do is we basically do last mile access. So everything from the user experience in the home, the Wi-Fi out, whether it's copper, fiber, or fixed wireless, up to the central office, we provide those capabilities and work with engineering firms and others to help develop a full platform. And quite honestly, we're very active in a lot of these federal programs for a lot of our customers. This is what we do. And again, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here, but what we're really doing is helping customers. And one of the things that we would love to listen and learn and work with the individual entities here with some of our partners and others to help build business cases and help you put together a plan that can go after some of these federal funds to be able to provide a more quality broadband experience out in rural areas and to the underserved, if you will. I'd like to really bring up the fact that a lot of these you're probably more than well aware of, but one of the things that we're really seeing a lot more is, especially in the utility space, we have some very smart power grid network functions and platforms that we'd love to discuss with the appropriate parties. We're also starting to do a lot more in smart agriculture, in smart IoT devices. And so this is another area that's a very simple overlay and a very nice way to be able to bring profitability to networks or help justify networks beside the basic telemedicine, distance learning, those types of things. And we have, again, I'm just showing you a couple of things, but we have a number of templates and use cases that we can help you develop a business plan.
Hey, Ron, you've got it on not presenter mode. Can you put it on present to make the screen?
Oh, are you seeing all my next slides? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Let's see. I am Zoom challenged here. Let me see if I can do it here. Where can I do that, folks? I'm sorry. Let's see. Is this it? Nope. Oh, that didn't do it. And is that better now?
It's the same.
I'm sorry, folks. I don't know what I need to be doing differently here. Can you see my slides?
We can see it.
You want to try looking at the display settings at the top of the screen?
Okay, let's see. Display. I'm sorry, guys. Let's see. Where am I looking here?
To the left a little bit.
Taskbar?
One over from there. Try that.
There you go. Try that.
Did that do it?
Yeah.
There we go.
All right. Well, now that I've got, I'm sorry. I apologize. Is this better now?
Great.
Okay. Apologies for my lack of Zoom knowledge here. If it was a team one, I'd be okay. But so anyway, what I have here, and I left a full slide set. I have a lot of backup slides regarding all the different programs. I'm sure you're aware of most of these or all of these. But what we have done is we distilled it down to just about 10 slides that go into details on all these different programs, who qualifies, how it's administered. And again, it was for us, it was a way to let potential companies or entities that are looking at getting into taking advantage of federal grants, just what's available, what the strings are attached, who's running it, timing as much as anything. And so I'm not going to go through each one of these, but I'd like to bring up a couple of things that I think you may be interested in. One of the biggest things that AdTrain is doing is helping grant recipients to validate and verify and do a lot of speed testing and validation work on their networks. There's a lot of scrutiny, especially in the RDOF area, as to committed data rates and what you're going to be able to do. And we're helping everything from boots on the ground, real testing, to helping clean up. There are a lot of our RDOF submission customers we work with that haven't been able to pass FCC scrutiny. So we've gone back and helped them validate things like their latency testing, split ratios, things that they'll need to be able to validate and justify to move forward. And we can help companies with that piece even after the grants have gone in, as well as now I'll talk a little bit about where we can help with partners we have, whatever, for all the different pieces that go into grant submission. But we're finding that a lot of these grant programs are through their first phase, and a lot of things have dropped off. There will be a lot of RDOF rework. There will be a lot of second awards, and then let alone things like tribal grants and things like that. I think that companies that or entities that are not late to the game, but have kind of wanted to see how it will work out, there will still be monies that will be available there. We're also working with a lot like what Utopia is doing. We're working with other private entities that can partner with municipalities, with cities and counties, and put together a program that actually we have one that can put together a proposal, build, and then either maintain it, or they can sell it to the entity at a predetermined price, which I think is really good. So you could then see it up and running and then do a bond election or a bond submission and get the funding at a predetermined price to buy something that's already installed. So there's a lot of options that are available. Again, I'm sure you're aware of CARES, ARPA, all the infrastructure bill, all these pieces. The important thing I just wanted to say is we can, as you have an idea, we can either help, or we have, again, the basic engineering firms or other consulting firms that can help you put together this program. We quite honestly are more into the last pieces of the installation, the deployment, the sustain mode, and I'll be going into that in a minute. But we have others that can help you put together a good cost-effective model. This again is just distilled down to all the different types of funding that's available. I'm sure you're aware of it, but we can go into details, and we have program managers in our group that can drill down in any one of these to talk about the nuances and where certain monies can apply to broadband infrastructure and where they cannot. I was just going to say, this is where we have resources available to do everything from an idea and a feasibility study to grant writing. And I really want to thank grant write fixing. If you found that things get rebutted, we've done quite a bit to help our customers get that submitted for RDOF, get their RDOF funds after they've been to 2 or 3 rounds of scrutiny and still haven't been able to do things. So from there, then we have groups, and there's a lot in this audience that I'm sure are well aware of a lot of the vantage points, the Cobb Finleys, the HR Greens, the ComNets that we work with for site engineering, network design. And then again, we can help with build and operate and again, speed and certification testing. A lot of customers like the white glove certification testing because it's kind of a cheap insurance policy. They set it, forget it. They don't have to worry about it. And we can help put the reports and everything together and do it on an ongoing basis. So I don't know how much time, I hope, Rebecca, that was okay. You said 10 minutes, and I'm delighted to be here, and I hope it's okay. I'll keep attending, and I'd be happy to talk with any of you one-on-one, but again, thank you for the opportunity. Any questions at all?
It looks like we're good. You did a nice job.
Well, either that or it was not very interesting, Rebecca. I'm assuming it's the latter, quite honestly, but happy to help out any way I can.
Oh, that's good to know. That's a good resource. So if you're interested, you can put your contact information in the chat. I know you had it on the last screen there, but if you'd like to add that there.
I will do that. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes. Now tell me if I'm wrong, but Ron, you are located here in Utah. You're just not here today.
I have a home in Farmington, but then work brought me out to California to be in Silicon Valley and stuff. So I'm actually sitting right now in Santa Cruz, and I'm going to go surfing in about 2 hours after we're all done here. Sorry, but I had to rub that in with all the inversions you guys get.
Your friends. Have fun. Thank you. All right. Next, we have another individual here in Utah. This is Brian Bowers. He is the founder of the 5G Alliance Utah. And Brian, let's test your sound. We were a little quiet with Ron. I think we caught you all, but make sure we can see and hear you. We're not hearing you. I know we saw you earlier. Brian? We lost him.
Yeah, I don't see him on the list.
Okay.
So he might have dropped out for a second.
Okay, well, we have FirstNet here in person. And if you're ready, I know that's a big jump, but Lynn, I know Lynn is not available until 12:05 because she's a school teacher.
Rebecca, are you able to hear me?
Who do we have? Is that Brian?
Yes.
You'll probably have to turn off your.
Goodbye.
Okay, let's try this again here.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
And did you send me a presentation? Already pull that up?
I did.
Alicia?
Yeah, what is the name of it?
5G Alliance, and it's in that folder. Can you see the folder?
Let me see if I can share that as well. Let's.
That'd be great.
Can you see that?
Yes, we can. Yay.
Okay. And you can hear me okay?
Yeah, speak up.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. Well, thank you for letting me come and meet with the advisory council here. This is an awesome opportunity. I really appreciate it, Rebecca. I'm Brian Bowers. I am the founder of the 5G Alliance Utah, which really started and found its beginning as I was a board member of the Utah Manufacturers Association and really got to know a lot of the industry players who are working in Utah. And, really, as we've come across all of the various opportunities as the wireless industry expands and as the new frontiers, 5G being the most prominent, those become opportunities for Utah companies to grow and for us to develop the ecosystem of actual Utah business and organizations and government and universities and funding sources to come together and work together. So the intent of the alliance is really to bring players together for the purpose of growing and developing the wireless ecosystem in Utah. And so I'm just really pleased to have the opportunity to talk with you. When we look at Utah, I see us as a leader in the wireless industry. We're doing some really cool things, some really amazing things. And the more that I've talked with different groups, the more I realize just how much we're doing and also how little the broader populace knows about the efforts of our businesses and of our government and of our various entities. So A couple of those examples that I came across early on was one at the University of Utah, the Powder Renew Initiative, which has established a 5G test bed for research purposes, but allows anyone to bring their software onto a software-defined radio network and actually get to test their products and test their software in that network. And as I've talked with people around the state, I've been just surprised that how few of them know about that initiative. And that was one of the examples that started me kind of saying, hey, we really need to get the word out, and we need to start connecting people in a different way. Another example is the Utah Education Network, or Utah Education and Telehealth Network. They pioneered establishment of a private LTE network, first at the Murray School District. And then as that was successful, then they've gone on to establish 25 different school districts with private LTE networks. And you think about the application of private LTE and these private networks, whether it's private LTE or private 5G, these are the networks that will allow enterprises like a manufacturing company or any number. We'll talk through some of the use cases, but this allows them to really start doing things in a secure, private way, but drive lots of devices and lots of opportunity to, again, things that Wi-Fi and some of the other tools are not allowing them to do it currently. So in the case of the school districts, this is allowing the school to control the content that actually goes out to the kids. And one of the things that I know that UEN is very, very proud of is that they don't allow like movie watching, Netflix, that kind of thing on their network. And instead they're providing school content out to the kids. The kids are able to have a network that they might not have if they're in a rural or underserved area, and they're able to do schoolwork and have school content on those things. So we have lots of different examples of this happening, and the affiliates that I've been working with, Utah Manufacturers Association, that kind of is this industry representation. UEN is the education side, the research side at the University of Utah. We have Monit in the state of Utah that is a leader in the IoT space and is developing and selling IoT devices out into the broader economy. And we have IsoTrust, which is a really innovative company that's doing infrastructure in terms of cell towers made out of carbon fiber and composite structures. Super cool. Wilson Electronics doing RF repeater work, and Wavetronics, it's doing kind of smart city and traffic control kind of activity. So as I continue to talk with these different groups, I realize just how much we need to continue to be talking about the opportunities that exist and connecting Utah companies and Utah organizations to these opportunities. I think that there are many opportunities on the software side, and we haven't even really touched on that, but here we have Silicon Slopes in Utah, and very few of those companies and individuals involved are aware of any of the telecom or wireless type solution and opportunities that exist and that they could be helping create solutions for, which is very exciting. I won't jump into the slides will be available. So, but I wanted to just present to you and make you aware of the many use cases for these wireless applications, and also for a recent new opportunity that's come through the CBRS spectrum release by the FCC. So the 5G Alliance Utah actually participated in the CBRS spectrum auction and obtained licenses in Washington County, Iron County, Wasatch County, and Bear Lake County, Idaho. And we're negotiating to extend into Cache County, Summit County, Rich County, and Utah County. Again, to provide members of the Alliance and other members around the state with opportunities to participate in establishing private LTE networks and other solutions. So anyway, there are many ways that we can work together. I think my time's probably up there, Rebecca, but I would just ask that if you're aware of success stories that are happening in the state, one of the 2022 initiatives for the 5G Alliance Utah is putting out a Utah wireless newsletter to help make people aware of what's happening. And I think that's just one of many opportunities to extend this ecosystem, to strengthen it, to strengthen our position of leadership in the industry and in the types of solutions that we're providing. I think this is another growth vector for what has already been a growing, sustained technology hub in the West. And I'm certainly proud of what we've been doing in the state of Utah, proud of what our leadership and even this the Broadband Center as well in these spaces. So thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Can you tell me what your plans are with the CBRS spectrum that you got in those areas?
Yeah, so far we've been partnering with for instance, the UEN. The UEN is now using some of the Alliance spectrum as a proving or a pilot, a prove out of how the CBRS spectrum could be used on PAL licenses in some of those private LTE networks. Really getting the demonstration of how it can be applied, how it can work in an enterprise application, and then extending that out, like with the Utah Manufacturers Association members. There are many of those companies that actually would benefit greatly in the warehousing and the factory settings, where they could actually be using a private LTE or private 5G network. And again, just getting those established, and those use cases that are presented here, many of them benefit from use of the CBRS spectrum.
Interesting. So that's something that the Powder Project have talked about partnering as well. So, or I'm assuming you're working with them.
Yeah, they've already established their network, and much of that was done with the carriers, the large telco carriers. I haven't done much with them on that piece.
Okay, good to know. Are there any other questions before we let you go? Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for letting me be involved here.
I'm looking for Lynn. I'll see her. So Lynn, if you're there, speak up. Otherwise, this will be the second time I'll make you jump up out of your seat and then sit down.
She's texting me right now.
Okay.
She's asking if I was at the meeting. I'm not sure why.
Tell
her we're all anxiously
She knows I wouldn't answer. I was like, checking this week. I don't see that you texted me. Let's go ahead and we'll come back to her. I think I'm catching her in between classes, so I hate to miss her, but because we missed her last meeting, she got sick, so everybody came here to hear from her.
You can always cut us off halfway through.
Is that okay?
Yeah, totally fine.
Come on up. I will make a formal introduction when you are coming. We will be hearing from an update from FirstNet Utah. We've got Shay Cook, Atm T Mobility Services, FirstNet Solutions Consultant, and Wally as well. It's not big that it doesn't fit. Oh.
Well, Shay's setting
Alicia,
up all.
yeah, sit in yours back there. Here, we run it back to it.
Shay's been in the industry about 20 years. He was with Verizon for 16 years. The last 4 years he's been with Atm T Firstnet as the FirstNet program rolled out in 2016. His background is he's the one with the answer to all the questions.
Hopefully.
And myself, I just come from more as a first responder from law enforcement and the military side, and just more of a user. I was the manager of our account at our place, and so I know firsthand, I guess, experience on how it was benefiting me and the citizens around me in my area. And recently, I've been around. They had me deployed to Boulder, Colorado during the fires over there, the Marshall fires. And it was a great experience to see what the machine can bring together for. So a lot of the fiber was burnt in that fire, and so there's a lot of towers out and things, and so we brought in at least a dozen satellite trucks to supplement that, so the first responders and field technicians for fiber companies could come in and repair the damage. But
So while they're working on that, thanks, Wally. Just a couple updates on AT&T's investment in the Utah communities over the last couple of years. From 2018 to 2020, AT&T invested $225 million in our wireless network infrastructure throughout the state. And that equates to, in the last 2 years alone, we did 415 cell site enhancement and upgrades over the last 2 years, between upgrading existing infrastructure and adding new cell site infrastructure. 138 of those in this past year out of that number. And so that'll continue to be our business model as we want to grow and expand, and especially in rural Utah. And we'll get into how that's going to happen because of FirstNet as we explore that and go over that. But we're excited to present. By raise of hands, I can't see the virtual hands, but how many in this room have heard of FirstNet? Wow, okay. A couple of years ago when I came, it wasn't that many people. So I'm glad the word's getting out. I'm glad it's getting out. And so we'll just highlight some of those updates of what FirstNet is, the network infrastructure, why it's so different, and really what our roadmap is from a network build out. Because the reality is the network's not there, especially in rural Utah and even in urban metro areas. The solutions that the FirstNet platform provides make no sense for somebody to want to utilize it if the network infrastructure isn't there, right? So we'll touch on that, and I'll review who can participate and utilize FirstNet wireless broadband services, and we'll wrap it up with why it's different than any other commercial wireless broadband carrier that's out there as we wrap it up. So with that in mind, I'll just quickly go as they're still working on that. The we're almost there. Okay. With FirstNet, the way that this is planned, so as you may or may not know, this was stood up by our federal government under the Obama administration back in 2012. It was mandated that a private public safety mobile broadband network be stood up in our country because of what happened during 9/11, the breakdown in communication from cellular broadband perspective, as well as a land mobile radio perspective. And FirstNet Authority, which is governed under the Department of Commerce by our U.S. Attorney General, they said the monies that they were given just simply weren't going to be enough to build, maintain, and operate this network nationwide for years to come. So they reached out for some partnerships, and AT&T was the only major carrier that put the name in the hat to want to be a partner in this venture to build, maintain, and operate this network. And so FirstNet Authority chose AT&T to be this partner. And so there's this public-private partnership of 25 years, this contract is, to build, maintain, and operate this network for our government agencies and public safety specifically. And what does that mean? Well, over this 25-year window, we've already put out there publicly, we're going to invest $40 billion into this. We know it's going to be much more than that, but upfront, we knew it was going to be $40 billion that we want to invest into this public safety network. And so each governor of every state opted in or had the choice to opt in or opt out. The network was going to be built whether there was a partner involved or not. If Governor Herbert at the time said no, well, the broadband network is going to happen, but new infrastructure is going to have to be built at taxpayer dollar expense. If he opted in, which he did, and all the governors did in the 56 states and territories, then AT&T would be fiscally responsible to build, maintain, and operate this network for the next 25 years that this contract was going to continue. So it's a very unique public-private partnership. And Wally and I say this all the time as we meet with government agencies and public safety. For the first time ever, they are in the driver's seat, dictating to us what solutions they want, where they want cell site infrastructure. Whereas before, as big carriers, we've always kind of dictated, hey, does this make sense in a rural area of Utah to put up a new cell site? No, it doesn't. There's not an ROI. There's not enough population, not enough subscriber base to warrant a new cell site out. It's just not going to happen. Well, FirstNet's a game changer with that. Public safety and government has a voice now. Our feet are being held to the fire by saying, hey, this network's here for you. There's a huge emphasis to get network wireless infrastructure in rural places throughout the state. Next slide, please. So what does it look like on the network thus far? We're over 2.8 million connections on the platform nationwide. That equates to over 18,000 agencies who utilize FirstNet today. Here in the state of Utah, it's been here since November of 2017 through today. We have 247 agencies throughout the state that are on the FirstNet platform utilizing services today. That equates to over 16,000 connections just here in the state of Utah utilizing the FirstNet platform. And so Wally and I, our job is to be the consultant and get out there and do some outreach and education, ensure that everybody knows and understands why it's here and why it's different. Next slide, please. One key ask that public safety had for this network, aside from more cell sites to cover rural America, was once this network infrastructure is there, we need to have priority services on this network. So we have first priority. And what that means is a FirstNet device, your smartphone device or tablet or laptop, whatever device is connected, is first in line on the cell site wherever you're at in the country. Meaning you're going to get to call, text, run that video, browse that website first above the general public. Always on 24/7, 365 for the four main ways in which we communicate. Very, very different from what other carriers are doing. But this was the ask of public safety. So we're doing it different. And
for me, that's significant as a former first responder. We had a freeway shut down. One of our officers was killed, another one was shot. And they shut down the freeway there in Nephi, and all the officers in Nephi, Utah County, couldn't make any phone calls because imagine shut down the freeway. You got all that traffic. What's everybody going to do when they're sitting in traffic and the freeway shut down? They're going to get on their phones. It's going to shut down the network there. And so, in the case with FirstNet, you have that black SIM, and you have that service. You're going to have priority on the network. You're going to be able to communicate. So just since I've been here for 6 months, I've seen it over and over. Like up in Swiss Days and Midway, where first responders couldn't communicate with when all those people come in, the network ties down, and so they had to use their radios just to get out to run traffic on instead of on the computers. And so with our service, they were able to get it right away. And the firemen up there, or just other incidences like in Boise, there was a mall shooting up there. Only those with FirstNet could really communicate because of all that congestion. Or it was a Toolkit concert up there. I mean, just incident after incident when you have high volume users, and that's pretty much the core reason why FirstNet exists. And so I've seen that firsthand, and that's significant for me is first responder. I was over search and rescue the last 8 years. And also the build out in those rural areas to people to through the.
And to that point, so the wireless infrastructure that we have is FirstNet Authority public safety owns some wireless radio spectrum, 700 megahertz. We call it band 14. It's owned by public safety. It propagates further outdoors. It penetrates better in building. And so they were saying, this is what we're going to offer government and public safety. Well, AT&T, we said, we're going to take that a step further. We're going to offer you all our wireless spectrum, all 167 megahertz. And so this platform where you get priority is across the entire AT&T LTE infrastructure nationwide. Next slide, please. So now that the network's here, not just any Joe Schmo can join the platform and utilize the services. There's a vetting process that the feds have put in place to ensure and keep the integrity of the network at play here. But our primary users on the network, just think of when you dial 911, who's coming to the scene first? Those are your primary users on the FirstNet platform. And over the years, when I first started, medical hospitals and emergency rooms were not part of the FirstNet platform as primary users. It was because of public safety feedback that we were able to add that and get that included. And then your extended primary users are those who support the scene after 911 is called. Those are ones who can come in. So you have all your government agencies, administration, utilities is huge. It's a big vertical now where we're seeing a great increase in users coming to the FirstNet platform. And we have a review vetting process in order for that to happen. Like I said, we can't just have it. Wally mentioned the black SIM. The SIM card is siloed and diverts all the traffic off the AT&T core network. The Fed said you have to build a separate core network, so there's no congestion, no interference with the general public on AT&T. You're siloed in your own cellular lanes of highway space on this, and that's all dictated by that black SIM card that Wally brought up. And so that's why we can offer true priority. There's no data throttling, no data capping. So for the first time ever in this industry, you have true unlimited data without little asterisks underneath. So it's quite different.
So a lot of your businesses
Next
that are
slide,
here, as utility companies, your field technicians, since they're deploying out in the field and responding to an incident and need, that urgent matter, they qualify for that service generally.
Mm-hmm. And just to run through some of the prices, just to give you an idea, Wally and I are here for questions and follow up within your own agencies or other jurisdictions as needed, but it's very competitive pricing. The landscape is very competitive these days, but for your smartphone, if you want unlimited data, talk, text, it's $39.99 a month with unlimited everything. You want to add a mobile hotspot to your smartphone, it's $5 more. And then your data devices, I'm sure many of you guys use a laptop with embedded mobile data or a little MiFi pod, whatever that looks like. It's $36.80 at the federal contract level. And so with that in mind, the footprint of a FirstNet rate plan is the US, Canada, Mexico, and US territories. So your FirstNet device will work in all those areas with all the unlimiteds that you see up here. No additional cost. And so with that in mind, we're able to be, one, have a great footprint that's cost effective. And two, within the US only though, I need to point out that priority is only available in the US, obviously, because we own and operate the network there. Next slide, please. This is just a sample of what we're able to do. Wally and I are able to come in and show you on a map these days where our cell sites are and where the coverage resides. Never before in this industry have we as carriers wanted to show and share this information. But it's different now with government and public safety being in the driver's seat. We're able to see this. But you see up here, I just wanted to show an example of public safety feedback and building out in a rural area where there was no coverage. Wally's territory, Timpanogos, American Fort Canyon, there's a red and green box there. When we started this thing 4 years ago, and Lynn Yoakum is familiar with this because she was part of this, is public safety wanted cell sites in areas where there's no cell service. American Fort Canyon was one of that. We just looked that up several months back. So now we're the first carrier, FirstNet, and AT&T consumers benefit off of this as well. Up the entire canyon from the mouth all the way up to Tibble Fork. And now we're expanding a couple extra miles up to Silver Lake as well, because of Wally's input as public safety member at the time. We stole him from that side of the fence. But that's an example of what we're doing in rural areas where there's little to no service to ensure coverage is there when needed. Next slide. And to wrap up, so why is FirstNet built with AT&T different? Number one, as I mentioned before, FirstNet priority, first priority. It's always on. Because it's a federal program, you don't have to do any additional authorization to gain priority access. So your voice, video, data, and messaging are always prioritized at all times across the country in an LTE market. And what is AT&T doing from a 5G perspective? Well, we're building that out. We've got 5G coverage throughout the state today, also prioritized. So what does that mean? Well, lower latency with 5G mobile broadband, and we're working on fixed solutions as well on top of wireless 5G solutions to help expand that. So you're gonna have an overlay of 5G with LTE on your FirstNet device, but still getting that first priority. FirstNet has that separate core network. So all the traffic for voice, video, data, and messaging resides in a separate core network off of the AT&T infrastructure core. And that is key and crucial for security purposes and ensuring that public safety and government agencies get reliable, available services as needed without congestion of fighting with the general public. And last, we have the government oversight. No other carrier has government oversight to do this. This is why I'm saying FirstNet, when it comes to rural areas and other build out where there's no coverage or service, we are contracted to do so. And we will do it. We have to follow through and do what we say, otherwise we're fined millions to billions of dollars if we don't comply. And so this is exciting for government and public safety to be in the driver's seat finally for these types of solutions that have never been there before. And so with that in mind, FirstNet is here to stay. Like I said, for 25 years, AT&T being the contractor for that. Wally and I are here. Tara joined us today too, as part of our team for questions afterwards, follow up. We'd love to answer that.
Great.
All right.
Very nice. Are there any questions? Answer right now. Records lost.
We'll be around after too.
Yeah. Is there any online? Alicia, I should be asking you, do we have any comments or questions online? Okay. If you're online, remember you can ask questions. Don't hesitate. I texted Lynn and found out that Saxon is prepared. Apparently.
I think prepared to pretty loose.
Is that a
term.
stretch?
Yeah, she
That's what
texted
she
me.
was
and-
texting. Yeah. Notice how quiet he was when all that was going on. She's texting me. I don't know why. So do you have her presentation? You just.
I've got a couple links that I just emailed to you that she wanted me to go over. The first is a video on the CARES projects.
I'm gonna go in the back of the room with Alicia and I'll get them with her and we'll get it set up, okay?
We're working on that. I just wanted to comment on that AT&T FirstNet. We were actually fortunate enough to see the contract that was built, the American Fort Canyon project. And while we were building that, there was an incident that was avoided, but maybe not if we weren't up there. There was a young woman that went up there and actually was contemplating suicide. And she was laying down on the road in the middle of the night. It was a project we were doing at night. One of our project managers actually found her. Her parents weren't able to locate her because she didn't have cell service. So to your point, I mean, that's just something that could truly, truly save lives, like you guys are saying. So that's cool to be a part of that. So where'd you see it? They got those.
Yeah.
So the first one was a YouTube video she wanted me to share on these CARES projects.
tell Lynn we want to see her sometime.
I will tell her that. So she's stuck in COVID. They've got 42 cases at the American Fork High School, unfortunately, so.
Well, I'm a statewide contractor for Udot, and Lynn gets on the phone and says, well, hi, Lynn. And I says, hi, you got a good name. No, you do.
Does that look like it?
Yes, yep, that's it.
We're assuming they're supposed to be sound. Should we try it again?
There should be some.
Okay, we found the sound. Never mind, you're gonna have to play your own music because it wants her to install. That's working. It's coming through the owl.
Projects that she received some of the CARES Act money for. One of them was I-84 up to the Idaho border. And the other one was I-70 down in the Richfield area. So these projects were able to give her money to provide some mobile hotspots to some of the highway patrol and local government facilities throughout those areas that didn't have coverage, and it also helped connect a lot of other schools and networks with the middle mile. So this was pretty innovative in the way that this program came out. As most of you probably are aware, the CARES money had a really short time frame on it. And so by the time they actually got it approved, it was sometime, I want to say, middle to end of September, and the money had to be spent at the time by the end of December. So the typical way that UDOT handles this is they go out to advertisement. It's got to be advertised for a minimum amount of days, and the engineering, none of that had been done yet. So design build is a term that a lot of people are going by these days. This was kind of design as you build, if you would. There wasn't a whole lot to work with, but she was able to utilize a procurement contract that she already had in place in order to get contractors to start this work almost immediately. And she used a lot of her connections on within the industry to be able to secure the materials needed to complete this job. So the way the procurement contract works is she's got a maintenance contract with a bunch of contractors that were already bid to that, and they have line item pricing. So she can go into those line items. She has Horrocks engineers that helps her with that. They put together a scope of work and they kind of populate those line items. And by the time that's done, whoever ends up being the low bid, they have the first opportunity to construct that work. So that's the process that she used on this, which was able to fast track the project to be able to get the majority of the funds spent. Now, luckily, at the time, right before it expired, the government came through and extended that time frame. So that enabled her to use all the funds. She was pretty dang close to getting it all built out, but those last couple months really enabled her to be able to make use of all those funds. So it was really nice because, like I said, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I want to say it was like 13 hotspots that they provided in those areas that local law enforcement or highway patrol could go into rest stops. And there was also the Fremont Indian Reservation. They were able to put a hotspot there, but they were able to go to those places and hook up to those hotspots where they didn't have any service. So any kind of emergencies in the future, they're able to go there and hook up to those hotspots and get some kind of service to where they can communicate with somebody if they need to. So challenges, again, it was a very, very short time frame that this had to be done. All the contractors had people working round the clock almost throughout Christmas. Obviously, there was a short break, but it was at one point, I want to say over 150 employees between the two projects were working 7 days a week, 16, 17 hours a day to get these projects done. So as well as in the midst of COVID. So trying to avoid everybody getting COVID and get this project complete. And then with all the material issues that were going on, those were some definite big challenges that she was able to overcome because of this program. One of the other things that Udot did was they kind of assumed a lot of the risk and liability. So there were certain areas that we came upon when we were building this that you just couldn't install by standard methods of either plow or bore. There was some rocky areas throughout I-70 that had to be rock side. So there was that kind of liability that they took on. We were able to utilize that maintenance contract to basically bill for what was actually being performed. And that helped fast track this to get built in the time that it needed to be built. So one of the cool things that came with this project is Lynn and her team was actually awarded the Udot Innovation Award for this project because of the way that they utilized these funds with the procurement contract. So and there's also another, is this the fiber map? So if you don't mind, in the very top middle, that little paperclip link right there. And then go to the Udot fiber program. Those. This kind of details these projects as well as the trade agreements that Lynn's been able to negotiate with a lot of her partners like Strata, Emory, a lot of the local telecoms. And that was part of this project as well. As it was such a large project that she was getting help from Emory, and Strata was actually on there helping install this infrastructure. So she wanted to get all the way to Green River. She didn't have enough funds to do that, but she was able to utilize her relationships with some of the local telecoms, Emory being the one on this specific project, where she was actually able to get a trade agreement to where they took off from where we ended to expand that network. So if you scroll down a little bit, I want to say there's some information that shows how much money she has saved the state with her telecom partners. Keep going a little bit. There you go. She saved Udot an estimated 105.8 million. So for anybody that's not familiar with how the trade agreement works, she's very big on the build once initiative, meaning let's put it all on the ground at one time so we don't have people coming back multiple times. So with doing so, she has developed really good strategic partnerships with all these local telecoms, where if she's building somewhere and she might know somebody that is also building in there, she would like to partner. She'll say, okay, well, I'll give you X amount of miles and however many fiber strands so that you guys can get here, and then somewhere else where she's needing bigger network, the same is done. You know, somebody like Emory or All West or Strata or somebody else is building, then a lot of times they will give her some infrastructure to do the same thing. And that's how that trade agreement works. And it said it's saved Udot 105.8 million. So it seems to be working out pretty well. Scroll down a little bit more.
There's a question here. Do you want?
Oh, yep. No, I'm sorry.
When you're done, can I tell of a job that I have done with Udot?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Here's some of the quotes from that she's worked with.
You're famous.
How about that?
And and some of the community partners that she's helped connect. Here's a couple pictures. I think there's some details here that will help explain this project a little bit more. Probably better than I did. I apologize. It's not something I was prepared for.
I can tell you the top one, they took it up to I-70, that's through my county, Box Elder,
Yep.
the Idaho border, and then they shot off and hit the Howell post office.
Yep,
And
yeah.
they're excited about that because now they're gonna use it to reach out into the community. And that's in nowhere, let me tell you. But there's people there that live there.
And so I think overall it went pretty well. Some pictures of Big Coffin when they did that. And here's some pictures of American Fort Canning project the gentleman we were talking about. So, and I think that's it. So, any questions, or I apologize, I probably ran through that pretty fast. I wasn't really prepared. So hopefully it wasn't like I was just going a million miles an hour, because it felt like it.
So down in southern Utah, I-15, Udot's put conduit in and haven't got the total fiber in. So Lynn and I have worked together when she was over American Fork Fiber years ago. And so she gave me a call and we talked. And she put the conduit in all the way around Southern Parkway, which is SR7, which loops St. George, Watt, horrific loop where the new airport is. And she called me up and said, when we worked, I traded with her. I'm a general statewide contractor for Udot. And she said, we've done a lot of trades, which we have, in the St. George area. Can you put it? Oh, put the fiber in on Southern Parkway. And so I said, okay, so I checked. And this is about 20 miles. And I put it in. And on the way, she let me go ahead and hook people up. And I did the St. George Airport. I did Sun River Villas. I got many more in line to do for her. And coming up down there, water is so huge. And Washington County Water Conservancy District, they called me up and they have a water treatment plant at Sand Hollow and said, can we get fiber? And boy, right where we ended the fiber for Udot, we came off a strand of 12 is my fiber on their 72 count. And we went and served Washington County Water Conservancy District and the water tank. They're just thrilled. And we're thrilled, Lynn's thrilled. And it's an opportunity that I'm taking to assist and help. And I can connect on Udot anywhere in the state of Utah.
Awesome. She's worked hard with a lot of the cities and counties. I know that she works actively with a lot of the counties. I know Tooele County, she's actively working with them right now. Obviously, again, I'm with AmeriCom, so I'm kind of just stepping in here and know from what I can see, but I'm sure there's a lot of negotiations and other trade agreements that she's actively working on, but I just speaking on the ones that I'm aware of. So
That's great. You did an excellent job. It looked like that's how you had planned this. Just like Roger had it pulled up. Is that on their website that you're looking
Yeah,
at?
I mean, probably most people in the room are familiar with UDOT's fiber map, but the link, this specific thing was right where he showed it. Is just you have the links at the top and there's UDOT fiber. If you can't find it, just Google UDOT fiber and it pops right up. So it's easy to find.
Brings it all.
Great. Thank you. Again, I'm not in front of the computer. I'm supposed to be in front of here. So you get an extra box lunch over there. Thank you.
No problem.
We have next a very interesting report from Danny Harris, the American Association of Retired Persons, AARP Associate State Director of Advocacy. They did a survey this last year, and I'm going to let them tell you about it. And results from that, challenges and opportunities for broadband for the 50 plus Utah population. And we have him virtually because their association let them out of the building.
That's right. We're still working remotely. Thank you, Rebecca, for the introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to be here with you all. My name is Danny Harris. I'm the Advocacy Director for AARP Utah. I'm going to pull up my presentation. Hopefully you all can see it there. If I can.
You didn't hear that comment in the room, that you're not old enough.
Hey, well, thanks for saying that. I've been with AARP now for 11 years. And when I first started, folks used to say, you look too young to work for AARP. And I haven't gotten that for about 5 or 6 years. So I appreciate someone thinking I still look young. But if you're familiar with AARP, we're a membership organization for people 50 years old and older. We have 38 million members across the country, and we have that's about 220,000 here in Utah. And we advocate on their behalf to try and figure out what issues are impacting them and how we can help make their lives better. And so one of the areas that has started to become more and more important to our members is that of high-speed internet. And so we conducted this survey last month to learn more about the needs across the state for older Utahns related to broadband. We surveyed 1,388 Utahns age 50 plus. And if you're familiar with surveys, that's typically, it's double to triple what we normally do. And part of that, the reason we did that is because we wanted an oversample of rural Utahns to ensure we had a complete understanding of rural versus non-rural needs. And so I'm going to run through the top lines of this presentation. I may skip a few slides here, but this entire report will be available afterwards. And I'm happy to take any questions as well. So let me just skip forward here a little bit. And we'll go here. I think one of the most common misconceptions about older Americans is that they don't use the internet. And our results showed that 92% of the people that we surveyed do use the internet. We do see a higher rate for those 50 to 64 than those who are 65 plus. But even the 65 plus use the internet at rates of 86% according to our surveys. And the most common uses for the internet, you can see these here. The most common are clearly making purchases online, paying bills online, streaming TV shows or movies, and a lot of opportunities to engage socially, which is important for our members to reduce isolation and maintain those social contacts. But it was important to us. 78% of them mentioned a health-related reason as one of the reasons why what they use the internet for, including getting health information, scheduling an appointment with their healthcare provider, or even attending that meeting via telehealth. So more and more important that internet is playing a role in keeping people healthy as they get older as well. Let me skip down here a little bit. Some of the biggest barriers, we were seeing that about 4 in 10 of those who were surveyed said that access to high-speed internet is a problem in their community. And we saw that was significantly higher in rural areas than it was in non-rural areas. As you can see, rural communities, 45% of them said that access to the internet was a problem compared to just 37 in non-rural areas. I think one of the important findings from this survey as well is that 68% of those who were surveyed said the internet service was expensive. And so I think that's, you may not, I'm not sure if you'll can see the whole picture here, but all those demographics there, it was fairly consistent across all demographics of age, income, and urbanicity to say that their internet service was expensive. And so that's something that I think, that we hope to focus on in the future as we look at the emergency broadband benefit as that transitions into a long-term program, ensuring that Utahns are aware of that program to get some help and focusing on the cost of service moving forward as well. We also found that roughly 40% said that they have problems with their home internet at least once a month. You'll see that the vast majority of people said they have issues less than once a month, but about 40% are having issues with their service at least once a month, which is a challenge. In terms of types of connections that folks have, we found that cable internet was clearly the most common connection for folks. I'm gonna have to move my videos here a little bit so that I can see some of the statistics. But when you look at the rural versus non-rural areas were much more reliant on cable internet than in rural areas who had, non-rural areas had much more cable internet than rural areas. And fiber optic continues to be a lesser option for both areas. Getting into that a little bit more, I think that's let's see here. In terms of reasons that people don't have fiber optic cable, clearly the biggest reason is because it's just not available in their area. And rural folks mentioned that much more than non-rural folks, where 66% of them said that was the main reason why they don't have fiber optic internet is because it wasn't available in their area, compared to non-rural areas where 40% of them said that was an issue. I think that it's important to, talk about those who don't have internet at home and the reasons why they say that their biggest barriers for not having internet at their home. The main reason that folks cited that they don't have home internet is because they're not interested in the internet, with 37% saying that was their biggest reason. Next was those who were concerned about privacy and security. And third was that the internet service is too expensive. So, these were interesting findings for us. I think we had a tough time, and we were interested in trying to figure out if there were things that would be of more interest to those who don't have internet access, to kind of figure out ways that we could reach them, encourage them to get internet access at their home. But I do believe that the cost issue is maybe more of a reason than was noted here, because in our demographics, we found that 77% of non-users had incomes below $50,000 a year. So while nearly all income demographics said that service was expensive, those who were non-users, the vast majority of them, 77% of them, had incomes below $50,000. So I think cost can be a major contributor to why folks don't have the internet. We asked older people who they look to when they have questions related to technology. And I think this was important for us to figure out too, as we try to get more and more people engaged in using the internet, to know who they look to for answers. And the vast majority of folks mentioned that a child or grandchild was their number one person on their list of who they would turn to. Next would be their internet service provider. And then third was other family members or spouses. So we were hoping that libraries and other places would be higher up the list, but it wasn't. So I think we need we're learning to understand to figure out how to best be in touch with family members of those who are older, to help provide them with the tools and services that they need in order to help their loved ones. We asked folks to give us a better idea of how they would support a number of these proposals that are being considered, especially with the infrastructure bill that was passed at the federal level. We asked voters how their levels of support for specifically building out infrastructure, increasing affordability for people with low incomes, ensuring free access in public places, and improving digital literacy. And while 3 of the 4, more than 50% said that building out infrastructure, making it affordable, and making sure people have access to high-speed internet in public places, more than 50% said that those should be a top priority. But still, nearly 4 in 10 mentioned that digital literacy should be a high priority. And these numbers were consistent across the political spectrum. You may see some slight variations between Democrats, Independents, and Republicans, but you'll see that for right now, and we hope that we can keep it this way, it's not a partisan issue to ensure that people have access to high-speed internet and that no one is left behind with their digital literacy. And so we were excited about these findings. There's plenty more information in the presentation that will be made available to you. And so if you're more interested in this information, I'd encourage you to look at that, but I'm also happy to take questions.
This is really excellent, Danny. But this will be posted on our website along with all the other presentations. I noticed during your presentation, Joseph Silversweig, he's virtual, has a question for you. Do you want to ask that now, Joseph?
Yeah, thanks so much. Appreciate it, Danny. Really appreciate this information. I'm curious about when you did this poll and if you asked any questions about the ACP in regard to broadband affordability. I mean, with the new federal program that's sort of putting in, I think it's $30 a month to help folks pay for internet, especially lower income folks. Do you have any data on how many of these folks know about that program or interested in it, have tried to use it, or any other questions related to that program?
So great question. We conducted this back in December when it was still the EBB, and we did not ask any questions about the EBB and awareness there. Although we are understanding now with the expense questions that we did ask, coming up being arising in this survey, that's going to be a big priority for us as an organization, is making folks aware of the program and trying to get as many people in Utah enrolled as possible.
Yeah, us too, and I'm sure other ISPs want to just make sure that folks who are concerned about affordability. So I'm with Comcast, and folks who are concerned about affordability know about all the resources they have and low cost, affordable internet services like increasing numbers of providers or anything else.
Yeah, and I would encourage folks, if they're interested in working with AERP on something like this, we'd love to do this. I've already done a Studio 5 segment, for example, talking about the EBB and getting folks signed up for that. I think this is going to be something that we're going to continue working on in the future to make sure folks are aware of it.
Yeah, I'd love to connect with you on that. If you've got contact information at the end of this, I'll reach out directly.
Absolutely, I'll put that in the chat when we're done.
I'd like to connect with you too, Danny. That's something we've been talking about and working on, broadcasting information about the new program. And thanks for that reminder, because I had that on my list, but I hadn't mentioned it yet. As many of the providers know, and hopefully others, the emergency broadband benefit is now changed as of December 31st to the Affordable Connectivity Plan, or the ACP, as Joseph mentioned. And I reached out to leadership there that are administering this with the NTIA, and they are going to do a webinar for us. I asked them if they could actually attend this meeting today, and they looked into it, but they have to wait until the rules have been approved, apparently, for the program. They like to start programs before rules are done enough. And that's okay. I guess they're trying to get things rolling and going. So February 16th, if you're interested, I will be sending out an email announcement or invitation to that we will be inviting them to a webinar to talk about the ACP program. And speaking again also, so thank you very much, Danny. That was excellent. And we will be talking some more. We have some other things coming up. Shauna Edson who is established a digital navigators program at the Salt Lake City Public Library. She is the technology and digital equity manager. So I think this is a good segue to hear what is being done at the library, since that was mentioned, and maybe what more we can do to support them and help their effort in getting this accessible to everyone. So it's like Shauna's getting started already, so we'll turn it over to her.
Hi, thank you, Rebecca, for that introduction. As Rebecca said, I'm Shauna Edson, the Technology and Digital Equity Manager here at the City Library. I've been working in digital inclusion in libraries since 2016, most of the time here at the City Library. I wanted to just start out my short talk today with some definitions of terms that you probably hear around digital inclusion and digital equity. They all have a little bit of different meanings. And on a national level, these are the definitions that the National Digital Inclusion Alliance and other organizations have adopted. So digital equity is when everyone can easily access and use technologies to communicate, learn, work, and play. So it is access as well as use of technologies. The digital divide is the gap between those who have affordable access, skills, and support to effectively engage online and those who do not. And then digital inclusion is the work that we need to do to achieve digital equity, and it must evolve as technology advances. So digital inclusion work is constantly changing and evolving to keep up with the growth of technology. So digital literacy is the ability to use information and communication technologies to find, evaluate, create, and communicate information requiring both cognitive and technical skills. So this is a pretty wide umbrella. It can also include media literacies, privacy and security online, several things, anything that really impacts somebody's ability to be able to engage with information online. And this is a list of all of the things that a digitally literate person should be able to do. And again, this comes from the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. I'm not going to read all of them. I'm just going to point out the first one. Possesses a variety of skills, technical and cognitive, required to find, understand, evaluate, create, and communicate digital information in a wide variety of formats. And how do libraries fit into this? Libraries have been hosting public computer labs for decades now. This was a statement from the PLA president just this past year. Our nation's public libraries serve as critical infrastructure for bridging digital divides, empowering lifelong learning, and advancing economic recovery. Along with that, the PLA and American Libraries conducted a survey to help determine the type of work that libraries do in this area. And they found that more than 88% of all public libraries offer formal or informal digital literacy programming. And 1/3 of libraries have staff dedicated to digital literacy and technology programs and training staff as part of their job. And 1 in 5 provides more advanced digital literacy training around coding, computer programming, robotics, and 3D printing. So digital equity at the City Library, this would be my work specifically. And some of the things that make digital equity work challenging for libraries is that it doesn't fit into one specific wheelhouse. So as you know, librarians like to categorize information, but digital equity is a service, which would be like our public computer labs, creative labs, other interactive spaces. It's also a program, a class, or a workshop. It requires a lens on looking at who might not be participating in digital spaces and why, and working to address that specifically, as well as specialized tech skills. So in 2020, there was a growing need for digital equity. The pandemic response shut down all of the places where people were going for digital inclusion. Face-to-face trainings were canceled, public access computer labs were closed, and walk-in support services became unavailable. There was a shift to do all these things online, but again, that meant that somebody needed to have access to that space. In October of 2020, the City Library got a $411,000 grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Services to create a pilot program known as the Digital Navigator. And we partnered with the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, as well as urban library councils to pilot this project. Our first step was to create a phone line where people could call in to get help with accessing broadband, hotspots, digital literacy training, as well as computers, laptops, and tablets. So you will see the term Digital Navigator is part of the Digital Equity Act, and the other funding that Rebecca has mentioned will be available through the NTIA. And this is a definition that is used there. So digital navigators are trusted guides who assist community members in internet adoption and the use of computing devices. Digital navigation services include ongoing assistance with affordable internet access, device acquisition, technical skills, and application support. So again, a digital navigator position or role is quite a large scope of work. So for our project, the direct service success for the project meant that participants met their stated personal connectivity and digital adoption goals through their engagement with the digital navigator. So this could mean, were they able to get connected to home internet? Were they able to carry out schoolwork online, unemployment compensation reports, attend a streamed church service, whatever it is that that individual wanted to be able to do online. So we worked to determine our focus communities for the project, working with the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. We looked at census data, state data, and local media to determine the least digitally connectivity, device ownership, and hardship due to the pandemic. So we focused on 3 neighborhoods in Salt Lake City, which are Glendale, Poplar Grove, and Rose Park, as in most in need of digital inclusion support. A big key part of this project was to meet communities members where they are, which meant local and multilingual staff, multilingual marketing materials, which included bookmarks and yard signs. We know word of mouth is one of the fastest ways for information to be spread in these neighborhoods. So we really worked hard to reach out to community-based organizations. We also did a door hanger campaign where our staff walked an estimated 220 miles, letting people know about this program in their neighborhood. We also sought out community partner organizations with deep roots in those communities. So we looked for organizations that were trusted organizations in the neighborhoods. They currently offered bilingual or multilingual programs with digital inclusion and digital equity work supported that could also support a full-time digital navigator person. We also recognize the value in being able to be flexible to work remotely or in person, depending on what was going on in the pandemic. So we worked with the University Neighborhood Partners, Catholic Community Services, and Suazo Business Center. So what we learned so far is that most people in our folks' communities needed devices. A lot of folks had access to some sort of internet or internet-enabled devices. We did see a rise in folks requesting support for in-home broadband after our door hanger campaign in our focus communities, which meant that word was reaching folks. So that was something we were able to support them with after that marketing. We also learned that ongoing support and relationships matter. Having a specific individual, the digital navigator, that people could work with on an ongoing basis showed the best digital literacy goal accomplishment. Some other things that we found out about the project is Some of the things that people asked the most support for, number one was career services. So applying for jobs, writing resumes, as well as GED or education. Foundational skills was also highly sought after. So a baseline understanding of how to use a computer. Accessing government websites and government resources was critical. And we also had a lot of people who stated that they saw that access to computers and internet was a positive growth opportunity for their lives, which we felt was really important. 86.67% of respondents to the follow-up survey reported that they were able to accomplish their digital literacy goals. So we were really excited that people felt like working with a digital navigator helped them reach their goals. We also distributed 365 devices during the 8-month project and supported 585 individuals. This is a list of organizations that have already reached out to us and to the NDIA who have worked to start digital navigator projects in their organizations or libraries. The digital navigator model is very flexible. It works well in a lot of organizations. It's definitely not limited to libraries. Some things for best practices for a successful digital navigator project. Definitely your CRM, determining your focus community, get to know who your community is and marketing to them. Collaboration is essential in this work. It takes an entire community working together. One organization cannot solve digital divides. Hiring people from communities that you're working with, as well as evaluation and assessment methods. We published a digital navigator toolkit with the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, which shares more information about the model, as well as an in-depth look at the data that we were able to collect during this program. At the library, we've also shifted our service model to be able to better reach people where they are and go to them to provide computer support. Again, this is the funding that Rebecca mentioned, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, kind of a breakdown of what that availability will look like for subgrantees to support the state digital equity plan, as well as anchor institutions and other community-based organizations. Great. So that's what I have today.
That's excellent. Congratulations. So I know that they program and have been able to share this with other so many people. It's one thing to have a internet, and it's another thing to be able to access it and to understand how to safely use it. I commend you for that. And thank you for your presentation.
Thanks.
So our final presentation, we're going to jump right into it. Our presenters will conclude virtually, but they also have a meeting right at the end of the half hour. And I know this meeting is to end then, so it looks like we're going to do it. This is GeoPartners. We have Paul Deeming and I believe Glenn Fishbein is here to present. And we contracted with them to establish data gathering for our broadband availability maps. So this is another layer that we're adding to our maps, and it's involving speed tests. So with that, we are going to have to do a crowdsourced speed test campaign. So they're going to tell us about GeoPartners and what they're able to do, how they're partnering with us, and what their system can do. And also, hopefully, we will be getting this out within the next few weeks or sooner, and we'll enlist all of your support and help in getting this out to your communities. I'm hoping the providers see this as also a good tool to verify speeds or those that are looking to go into areas that are maybe are currently low, opportunities to use our grants. I'm hoping that there will be additional funds, and this will just kind of help guide us and be able to verify areas of need. So we will now turn the time over to you, Glenn.
Okay, I'm going to start a screen share here. This is the result of having done some crowdsourced speed testing through Washington, Ohio. Just to give you a sort of a little bit of a background, going back to 2011, Breaking Point Solutions, which is the developer and licensor of the software, started working on dog rescue issues. And the issue was getting a dog from where it needed to be rescued to where somebody was going to take care of it. That involves a transportation modeling system whereby you can get volunteers to pick up the dog at point A, drop it off at point B, and continue along the route. Methodology from that comes out of something called operations research, which was also developed to figure out how to get convoys across the Atlantic Ocean during World War II without getting all the ships sunk. That later evolved as our work changed into telecommunications modeling. We're working on a project with Sprint Samsung for 14,000 cell tower deployments in the northern part of the United States. And that then ultimately evolved into the approaches that we take today. Starting 3 years ago, GeoPartners was formed to do the marketing sales aspects of what we are currently doing today. And the bottom line of what we are trying to achieve for any community is find the money. That's it. We just happen to use a map. But the objective is figure out how much money an area needs to do a deployment, and then figure out how to get that money into that area so the deployment can occur. Now, what you're seeing on this map is what we'd think of as an availability map. Generally, where are the services available? What is the quality of the services? Green and cyan are great. Yellow is so-so, red is pretty poor, and black is no service whatsoever. And your eye can picture these areas pretty easily. You can see there are good quality services in some regions up in here and up in here. And then you've got these two large pockets here and here of no service or no quality service whatsoever. Now, one of the things that occurs as we go through the process of collecting the data is we start discovering that there's more than availability information on these types of displays. So, for example, we come into an area such as this small community here, and we see charter communications costing $65 a month at 114 meg download speed. Here's another charter at 71 meg download. Here's another charter at 60 download. And here's another charter at 77 meg download. Charter is in this area. It's available. But every one of these black dots is an individual who reported that for one reason or another, they do not have broadband, and they voluntarily gave that information forward in an effort to figure out how to get them broadband. So here we're looking at things such as income disparities, unaffordability, or digital literacy. So we start seeing from this type of data collection process, we're looking at a lot more than just is it available. We can also start looking at is it affordable. And to that end, we also collect cost information. So instead of looking at download speeds, now we're looking at monthly costs to provide the services for the people who have them and have reported costs. So this type of information now can be funneled into the appropriate programs such as the FCC's $30 a month and whatnot to focus on areas that have affordability issues and move from there. Now, the second thing, though, is that there's going to be a lot of money flowing into the streets from the feds, and they're going to give it to the states, and the states in turn are going to try to get that into the communities. But there's going to be insufficient funds to get everybody. So there has to be some means of prioritizing the areas and making these things affordable to maximize the number of households that get covered by these broadband resources. So just taking a hypothetical, I can define these two areas as high probable project areas. So the question is, how much are they going to cost? So the first question is, where's the backhaul? So thanks to the fact there's a lot of ISPs and fiber folks sitting around this table, I'm hoping that you're going to provide us under whatever NDA you want, your fiber routing, so we can do this type of thing throughout Utah. But what we can see from this example is for this potential project area, the backhaul is available. It runs right through the heart of the area, not a problem. You just have to figure out how much it's going to cost per month and how many gig you need. For this project area here, the nearest fiber is up here. So the first question in terms of costing is how much money is it going to cost to bring fiber from where it is to where I want it to be. So in the Tetris model for backhaul analysis, we basically will take a look at that from two different perspectives and figure out at a high level, what is the consequences of trying to put backhaul in there? So we can see the purple road is the shortest route between those 2 points. That's 3.6 miles. If you're paying $100,000 per mile, your backhaul cost is $360,000. On the other hand, you could also see this points here. We've got 2 hypothetical towers that are 80 foot tall, wooden telephone poles, point-to-point backhaul, 800 megabit per second. The terrain is clear. So for, say, $35,000 per tower, I could have an 800 meg backhaul going to essentially that same point. So if my choice is $70,000 or $360,000, I have to think carefully about which one is going to be more cost effective. The next thing that we want to do then is, given that we have a vision as to what our backhaul costs are going to be, now we can ask the question, well, how much is the project going to cost? So for that, we could go through the process of literally outlining the project area and say, this is our hypothetical project area. And the question we might want to ask first of all is, how much is a fiber to the home project going to cost in this area once we brought in the backhaul? So we can basically come up with the model that we've developed over 200 and some odd feasibility studies that we've done. We'll need to find the correct blended cost per mile for the fiber to the home installation. With apologies to the AdTran representative in the room, we're using a Calyx model in this case, but we can switch as needed. And then what we're basically going to say is we want everybody to have fiber. We don't care how far apart they live. And this now will come up with using those catalog pricing and blended fiber costs with a model that tells us that the cost of this project is going to be $4.79 million. We got a 99.4% coverage rate. And from a competitive grant point of view, we don't get any points. Now, the competitive grant comes out of the various USDA content. For the Reconnect 3 program, we're looking at the SAIPE areas, the SVC areas. We're looking at opportunity zones, virality, density, farm counts, education, medical facilities, things that go into grant applications that make a competitive grant possible. But that price tag also includes $3.7 million of fiber and $231,000 of electronics and a blended 20% overhead for the project management at $4.7 million. Well, you may not be able to get a federal grant for that because you're not highly competitive compared to other regions in the country. So let's say we're going to try this instead from a fixed wireless point of view. So from that perspective, now we take the same project model. Now what we're going to do is we're going to force this to not to be capable of being fiber. We're going to require more fiber households at a minimum than are available. And then we choose the catalog pricing for different types of technologies. We got a 5G guy in the room, so we'll say we're going to do 100 symmetric. And in that context here, we're basically also selecting an RF propagation model in the background. Now we ask the question, well, how much would that project cost us? The answer comes in $204,000, but we can only cover 69% of the households. And the reason is you can't run radio waves through hills and valleys and trees. So we can cover about 2 out of 3 households, but we can't get everybody. And then if we want to say, okay, let's do a mixed model here. Oh, and by the way, your cost per household comes in at about $940 for the ones that you can cover. So we might want to do, say, a hybrid model, some fiber, some fixed wireless. So in that context, we'll just leave the defaults here. We'll bring in the 5G or the LTE solution here and try it again. And now what happens is that we now have an $844,000 project and our coverage is 80%. So what you're seeing is very rapidly, we can run through hypothetical projects, come up with very plausible project costs, competitive scores, and all of these models are stored in real time into a database that can later be retrieved. And then when the grant program hits the street, you can sort these projects by the most viable grant opportunities. You don't have an infinite number of grant writers. You can't write an infinite number of grants, but you can find the ones that are going to be most competitive, most likely to get awarded, and thereby bring the appropriate dollars to the appropriate projects for an appropriate grant program. There's a lot of other things that are built into this system. Our training session with the state, the first time took an hour. I was told they were drinking from a fire hose, and we have another hour to go on that, so I'll be drinking more. But these are the high points of the things that occur from this type of analysis. The bottom line here is find the project areas and then find out how much it's going to cost so we can later apply grant writing resources to bring the money to where it's needed. That's as fast a summary as I can do, Rebecca.
I don't think you took a breath. Oh my gosh. That's not, so I think I got it. Tara has a question from AT&T.
I'm wondering where the data points come from, because you reported, for example, the black dots for people saying they didn't have service. But it also looked like on your data, you showed form 477, some sort of conflict, I think is what it said, form 477 conflict. So those areas probably do have service. So I'm wondering where all this is coming from and how you're interpreting it.
Okay, so what I've done right now is I overlaid the FCC 477 data from their most recent release. And color coding matches the color coding of the speed testing that we've done. And you can see, according to the 477 data, regions like this are sitting upwards of 100 meg download. But at the same time, we're seeing 20 households in that location. We've got no service counts at 20. So that is somewhat of a discrepancy. And as you go through here we have, again, the FCC says your service speeds are greater than 100 megabits per second. The actual measurement speeds that we receive from the people in those areas are 24 reports of no service, 3 reports of Frontier Communications at 2 meg, and 2 cell phones from Verizon Wireless. So what this allows us to do at a very fine level by census block is do a direct comparison between the 477 data and the data that's collected from the speed testing that's being performed. I think that answered your question.
Where is the speed test data coming from?
That's our campaign that we are going to launch, and all of us are going to help to have everybody across the state do speed tests, and there will be a step-by-step to how to do it appropriately, accurately. So, and also the speed test, and I think confirm this, because this is what he says is, you know, you look at the conglomerate, right? So you're going to get an idea. Maybe somebody's got a bad computer. Maybe they're not paying for the highest speed, you know, in a neighborhood. But if their neighbors around them are, then you know it's like the average. Does that make sense?
Time of day as well matters and all that.
Yeah, probably. Glenn?
Didn't quite hear the question.
The day. Any factors like that are taken into consideration?
Well, what we try to do is we've tried to pretend that no single test has meaning by itself. What we're trying to do is come up with statistically large enough samples to talk about regions. So for example, you may have a 1 gig circuit in the middle of an area that has people with no service. Now your focus is not necessarily availability, then it's going to become affordability. The issue is to make sure that for that region, the sample size is large enough that we have a statistical level of confidence that we are seeing real effects, be they deployment effects, income effects, or digital literacy effects.
So if we don't get the speed test, then it's of no value. So we need to get many over a period of time.
Can I interject?
Thank you. I think they've got a hop. What was that?
I said, why not just buy Ookla or speedtest.net data?
Because they're expensive, and our budget, and this is, we like to do Ookla, and we hope to do that also. So it will be this and Ookla. It won't be this or Ookla, or it won't be this or our availability maps. It's and. So these are layers that we're going to use. So we're not going to just rely on just this. We will definitely, as we have all along, rely on our availability maps. And then if we have the funding, then we can potentially go for Ookla. But right now, I don't have that funding.
Just a quick thing to point out here, and I really have to run. Ookla has put in the public domain a data set that they're updating quarterly. The Ookla data you're seeing here is these rectangular areas. And the primary difference between what we're trying to accomplish in Utah versus what Ookla does is this: we're trying to do an intentional sample. We're encouraging people to actually come out and take the test on behalf of the community. Ookla does this as just part of their normal business of data collection process. There is no intention to go out to rural areas and find rural problems. If somebody in a rural area does a test, Ookla is great. But if they don't do the test, well, nobody's got data there. The other thing Ookla cannot do is it cannot tell you that there is no service available in that area. So yes, it's a good supplement. We have it, we use it, we love it, but it's not, as Rebecca said, there's no single correct answer to any of this. You just collect as much data as you can and hope that you get to the right answers.
So with this page that people will be directed to, they'll be able to put in their address or not. Or they can just put in their street, whatever they're most comfortable with, so that it will actually, when this was being turned, this will not be public facing, we will be able to see the addresses and see exactly, the speeds that they are getting and who the providers are. And if they don't have it, then they have a place to wherever they are at the library, they can put their address in and say, I don't have service and this is the address. Okay. That's it.
I'm sorry, I've got to bail now. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you all.
Much. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
When you run things through, like,
Funding.